Well, it might be Christmas Eve, but there's no stopping the news at the moment. Joining me now is Liberal MP Garth Hamilton. Garth, thanks for joining me on Christmas Eve. I want to start with the Reserve Bank. Some hopefully good news for households. The RBA said today it was increasingly optimistic that inflation will fall in coming months, and today's sharper than expected decline in wage growth numbers might mean a rate cut sooner rather than later. This is good Christmas news.
Well, look, in isolation, it's good to see a rate cut. I think we need to see this in the context of the economy. This is the hard landing, sadly, they've been warning about for a couple of years now. Amongst record insolvencies, the biggest drop in productivity we've ever seen, 7 quarters of GDP per capita growth going backwards. We're in a bad way. This is a sign from the RBA that they're seeing how bad things are going, and that pain is trickling down to people. The government's plans to prop up the economy with huge immigration numbers, vast amounts of public sector growth, it just hasn't cut the mustard. We're hurting, and this is not a great thing when viewed across the context of the entire economy.
Well, this news comes as the International Monetary Fund backs in what the RBA have been doing by keeping rates high and warning against the government going on a spending spree, which of course we know they have been. Now, you've called for the government to rein spending in for quite some time, so you would completely agree with the IMF on this one, I'm sure.
Look, this is a no-brainer. Government spending has driven the inflation that we've seen in Australia. That's been a fact of life across Western democracies for hundreds of years. That's what happens when governments blow all their money. This is what's causing our pain. I've voted against, I think, over $110 billion worth of excessive government spending. Their spending has increased by over $300 billion. If you want to do a comparison, 2019 to now, we're spending more than $100 billion per year. So we went through that COVID period with some increased expenditure, and we've never come back down. So this is what's causing all of our issues at the moment. I've been on this for a long time. Angus Taylor's done a great job of prosecuting this case. The government has refused to acknowledge that their spending is causing the pain that Australians are feeling. And look, I think this is one of the worst things this government has done, because the inflation they've caused doesn't bear down evenly on the economy. It hurts those most vulnerable first. You think about pensioners who are on fixed incomes and renting. They've seen their cost of everything go through the ceiling, but their income staying the same. So they're in a lot of pain. On the other side, think about 21 to 29-year-olds trying to get on the property market. They can't save a penny. That dream of home ownership just keeps slipping further and further away. This is what the government spending is doing. It's hurting Australia.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the issue of home ownership, because the other thing the IMF said was that Australian housing is now amongst the most expensive in the world. That's despite a recent slowdown in prices. They say 5 of our cities are now in the top 20 most expensive in the world. Garth, I don't know whether you've got kids or not. I've got twin 19-year-old sons. And as a parent, you look at property prices and you just wonder what hope your kids ever have of buying a home in the future.
I feel exactly the same. I've got 3 kids, and that part of me of thinking about what I was like at their age. Now, the first house I bought was actually reasonably quite achievable. $200,000 in Brisbane. That can't happen now. That just simply is not a possibility for someone to come in at a reasonable level in a major city. And I'm not surprised to hear that report come through. We've brought in a whole extra city, a whole extra Australian city with our high immigration policies over the last couple of years. And we've done that at a time when housing levels, new housing levels, have been at record lows. We're seeing the deployment of Greens policies at local councils restrict new builds right across the country. This is hurting us, and I think this will take quite some time to resolve itself. This is going to be an issue that we'll look back on in our much later years and think, goodness me, this was probably the toughest situation we could put young Australians into. Increasing immigration by this much at this time, the impacts are going to be felt for generations.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that one. It's hard to see where it turns around, and certainly hard to see it turning around any time in the near future.